Those who have been in a coma. What was it like? When I was in 5th grade I fell out of a tree and bonked my head pretty well. I woke up 3 days later in the hospital. For me, the experience is easily summarized in 3 parts. 1. When I fell, I blacked out before I hit the ground. Or at least that is where memory fades. And fades is really the best word. It was as if my consciousness was drained away and then blackness and nothingness. It was as if my body knew how badly it was going to hurt and so it shut down. 2. I have very vague memories while in the coma of hearing my dad reading a book. Or my mom telling me that she knew I would pull through. Or of a tube in my nose. But these were always super fuzzy moments and I never was conscious during them. It was more like a half second of being aware of one particular thing, the way the tube felt being taped against my arm and wishing I could reach out and move it and then back into the nothingness. I think that I was somewhat aware of the fact that I was a little more aware each time that this happened, but honestly I am not certain of even that much. 3. Waking up was sudden. So sudden. I was in blackness. Had a moment of awareness. Like my neck hurts and then the pain was magnitudes higher. No longer a distant perception but something that I was actively conscious of. Waking up was the most painful moment of my life and I just started crying and then couldn't even cry, it hurt so bad. I think that had more to do with injuries sustained to my neck and head than the coma. But that is what it was like. After an hour my body was used to the pain and I was totally normal. Albeit very weak, hungry, and thirsty. I survived and am fine now without any lasting issues. In 2016 I was in a coma from March 31st to May 5th. Then half awake for another month after that. It was like the longest, scariest dream of my life. I was medically induced by a fentanyl drip for about a week at first, and let me tell you, fentanyl is a demon. Wacky dreams about fighting corrupt hospital officials. So my brain knew where I was. They didn't think I'd ever talk or walk again. But in the hospital bed I laughed at an episode of that 70s show and inclined every day after. Putting me at about 85% health overall these days. But pretty much an average guy. Oh, it was a head injury. Had a seizure in the bathroom that made me fall onto the sink. Similar experience. Drip and all. But I had Guillain-Barré syndrome. I dreamed/hallucinated that my younger sister was dead. Cut in half. And they were making me lay on her severed body. When I woke up the first thing I asked was how she died and everyone looked at me like I was crazy. There were actually many times I believed they put a random dead body in my bed. Another one I had was about the nurses encasing me in concrete. I was paralyzed, so that's just how my brain processed it. I was aware of people talking to me and being with me. I just couldn't communicate and my brain processed everything in this weird dream world. I had meningitis when I was 12. Which got misdiagnosed for stomach flu and ended up with me being taken to the hospital last minute. The last memory I had was falling asleep watching the emergency news on the Brussels airport attack. I later on had a sort of fever dream, which ended up to be true, about my parents driving me to the ER saying it's okay over and over again. I couldn't move or talk. So it seemed more like a dream than something that was actually happening. I saw the lights of the ER parking lot, which made me close my eyes, and after that it was like taking a nap. I had no awareness of time at all. It's like going to sleep and just waking up what feels like a second later, but it's actually morning already. I woke up 6 days later. Highly drugged, but only gained consciousness the day after. My first memory after waking up is opening my laptop in the hospital bed to play Minecraft. I have no idea what happened or what I said when I woke up before that. I can only compare it to when you're little and wake up at a friend's house and don't know where you are. I was in a coma for 2 months after a bad car accident. It wasn't medically induced. It was thanks to brain damage. When I woke up I was alone in the hospital room and had no clue what happened or why I was there. I had a neck brace on due to a broken neck, so I figured something was wrong with my neck but was unsure how or what happened. For some reason I thought I was 60 years old. I was in my 20s. I was paranoid and scared, but didn't know why I was there. I used context clues to figure out I was in the hospital. It was frightening. After about 5 minutes I decided to go back to sleep. 2 months of sleep wasn't quite long enough. Reposting from another thread I talked about it. 2 weeks induced because of swine flu. During this time Oprah announced she was ending the Oprah Winfrey Show. I was very upset to learn this after the fact. Mostly because the TV running in my room, the drugs they gave me to keep me under gave the most cinematic dreams I've ever experienced. Somehow the news of Oprah retiring filtered into my brain as dreaming about saving the whales with her in a submerged Chicago. We had champagne brunch. It was excellent. I was also a superhero who could fly and fought my enemies on the rims of volcanoes. And then I woke up and not only could I not fly, but my buddy Oprah had betrayed me into retirement. I was crushed. This is my favorite response. I wasn't in one for long, just under a week. While I was in the coma, I didn't remember a thing. When I came out of it, I just remember hearing my mom yell to the attending, "He's up." Then I woke up with a bunch of white coats in the room. I was super stiff and incredibly confused. Oddly enough, I kept having vivid dreams of myself in the coma after the fact. Still have them to this day. They're almost like an out-of-body experience because I can see myself laying in the bed with people around me. I have those dreams about when I had the swine flu as a kid. I can see myself in my parents' bedroom and everything is a bit purple. This is so interesting to read everyone's experience. I'm an ICU nurse and I work with patients in comas all the time. I talk to them. I let them know why I'm touching them, whether it be to give them medication, draw lab work, bathe them, clean them after an incontinent episode. I'll also reorient them to where, why, and how they're in that situation. I'll also tell them when their loved ones call to check on them. I would feel awful knowing someone I took care of had flashbacks of feeling violated during a coma. I was in medically induced coma for about a week. The coma itself is not much to talk about, there is just a gap in your memory. Even from before it happened, I don't even remember the accident that brought me there in the first place. Waking up from it is much different story though. Since I was fully dosed by painkillers and sedatives and whatnot, I was basically high as kite, and since the trauma I suffered was very serious, my brain constructed very stressful, vivid nightmares I remember to this day. I was in a coma for almost a month, 29 days. The dreams were terrible. And I had a problem where if I smelled something that I could relate to pure oxygen, or the room I was staying in, it would trigger a flashback. I would literally be reliving it all over again. Bleach was almost guaranteed to trigger it. It gets better. And if you have flashbacks, tell your doctor. They put me on something that stopped them. A year later I stopped taking the meds to see if I was better. And yes, my brain rewired. Bottom line is, I know what you are going through. You are torn with the knowledge it wasn't real, but it is remembered as clearly as any other real-life memory. I was in a coma for 3 days following a serious cycling accident. Medically induced. I woke up with zero recollection of why I was there or what was said while I was out. It is easily the scariest situation I've found myself in. But I can't say I remember it. I woke up to my mom and dad in the hospital with me and my body in traction of some sort, and that was way scarier to me. Glad you are still with us. Any side effects from the injury or coma? I was in a very short coma 6 days after a brain hemorrhage. I recall nothing during the coma. I have a fuzzy understanding of my first week or two after waking up, having pieced it together by the stories I was told, and memories of the days leading up to it were temporarily wiped out, though they have since returned. This was over a decade ago, so take this with a grain of salt. My memory in general is imperfect at best. Edit. I should mention that my coma was induced so they could stabilize me and drain the blood via my skull. My mum had the same thing. Unfortunately hers was so severe and she died 5 days into her coma. I'm kind of glad that you don't remember your coma because I like to think her last moments were having fun with